One of the big headlines to come out of the press conference with 49ers owner Jed York had to do with Kyle Shanahan pulling Jed aside after training camp, Brock Purdy's rookie training camp, and telling Jed that, hey, this kid, Brock Purdy, is absolutely special and he could be the quarterback of the future. And he's saying this with Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster and Trey Lance, who they just traded up for to go and get. So it was absolutely crazy, and we got our response from Brock. But just in case you missed it, I'm going to play Jed's response right here. And also after that, we have general manager John Lynch responding to it as well. And he gives a hilarious response of his account because he was there when Kyle told Jed. If you missed it, we're going to play it from Jed, and then we're going to listen to both Brock react to this and John Lynch. So take a listen right here.
I said his honesty, his directness. I mean, we haven't really talked much about Brock, but I mean that's a good example of Kyle's directness. Last year in preseason, I think week 1 of training camp, which you have a quarterback that we're paying, I think, $20 million to. You have a guy that you drafted with investing 3 first-round picks into, and he grabs me after practice. He's like, hey man, we got to talk. And that's generally not a good thing when your coach tells you got to talk. Like, all right, what's up? And he's like, I think our third-string quarterback's our best quarterback. I'm like, okay. I'm like, what does that mean? He's like, obviously, like, we've invested in Trey. Like, Trey's doing a good job. Like, we're going to do everything that we can. We're not going to change that. And we're not going to change the depth chart. But, like, I think Brock will end up being our quarterback at some point. And, like, he didn't force it, right? You had 2 injuries, and that's how Brock ended up playing. But he's always honest, even if it's not, like, one thing that owners don't love to hear when they've invested money and or draft picks or both into people, that the last pick in the draft is the guy that we think is the best. That's generally not great news, but he's honest, and he let it play out the right way. Brock, ironically, I think his first game was against the Chiefs, and he had some mop-up time, and Brock, I think he threw 1 ball into the stands, and I may or may not have had some sarcastic comments for Kyle post-game. But when Brock took over last year, like, I think we had a calm about us, but there was a sense that, like, nothing catches you by surprise.
And this was the soundbite from yesterday. And so that was, of course, asked to John Lynch today. And he gives his feedback and his recollection of that situation. And I love the fact that he was there. So he got to witness it. I'm not going to steal any of his thunder. Take a listen right here to John Lynch replaying the situation when Kyle Shanahan told Jed York that Brock Purdy might be the guy.
I was there when he told Jed that. My jaw hit the floor. He had told me that, but I didn't think that. Kyle often runs things by me to see if they're crazy. Kyle and I had been talking. I mean, we like Brock early, but it was in a really limited fashion that we had seen him. So I think we had a hunch that we had a chance to have something special. And Kyle is about as direct as person. He's really easy to work with because there's no gray area. And so Jed told the story, but I think where I'm at right now, we've got a huge challenge in front of us. So looking at his, I guess Kyle was fairly prophetic that day because he's turned into a pretty special player for us, and we're really pleased about that.
I love that John says his jaw hit the floor because, again, I think that's why this is such a big moment, right? It's such a big thing, is like with the circumstances at hand for all the context that occurred to lead up until that point. And then for Kyle to not even like consult with John and just pulls Jed aside and says, "Hey Jed, guess what? You know that new quarterback that we gave up all that stuff for? Yeah, this Mr. Irrelevant's better than than him and Jimmy Garoppolo." And just John Lynch's response to it is just it's hilarious. It's great. I love it. And I think it's just like it's a cool behind the scenes look at this organization from kind of like a front office perspective, right? We focus so much on the play on the field that we don't think of this like from that aspect of it. So it's really cool to get that insight. And so naturally, when Brock Purdy speaks at the podium today, he's going to be asked about it. And this was Brock's response to Kyle Shanahan telling Jed York that he's better than both Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo as a rookie.
Jed York was telling a story that Kyle Shanahan came up to him in basically the first week of training camp and said, Brock's the best quarterback on the roster already. When did you have an idea of how much Kyle believed in you?
When I first got here, I was obviously just trying to learn the playbook and compete every day as hard as I could on the field. And then over time, like, honestly, I didn't really know ever. Like, I was going through the preseason games. He wasn't really saying much. Obviously, he was trying to develop Trey as best he could and all that. And we were all, being there for Trey and helping Trey out. And then when the season sort of came around and I found out I made the team, I was like, oh, okay. Like, I think he, respects the way I play and how I handle things. And that was really about it. And then, I got my opportunity against Miami, and then we sort of talked after that, and that's sort of when he started telling me, like, hey, since you've been here, you've been doing everything right, that kind of thing. So that was really about it, though. So
Now, I wouldn't expect any different type of answer than what Brock gave. It's the most humble, kind of deflecting answer as much as possible. Like, and again, I think that's also due to paying respect to Trey and Jimmy. Like, he doesn't want to like go out of his way to be like, oh yeah, I knew, I knew. I mean, I'm my perspective of it is all we've heard, and especially through all these conversations, is how direct Kyle is. So if Kyle thought Brock was better, something tells me he would have told Brock that, or it would have been alluded to him, or something. I don't know. That's just kind of my thinking. But again, the way Brock handles it is again why he's the leader, is why he will be the leader of the team. He might not be that yet. He's definitely a mainstay, a huge leader on the offensive side. Obviously, he's the quarterback, so he's almost the default leader just by position. But to be the leader of the team, to be a Fred Warner, to be a Trent Williams, to be a Debo, a Kittle, one of those guys, you got to earn that. And Brock will be there one day. Brock will be there one day. He will be the number one guy in this locker room. He will be the highest ranking officer. Everyone looks to Brock for leadership and wisdom and guidance and his thoughts. Like, that will happen. That day will come. It might not be right now, but I do believe that Brock is that guy, and he's the right guy, not only for this locker room, but just for the franchise in general. And so I just love the whole dynamic of it. I love that the feeling of, and a part of the feeling of this is that the 49ers have their franchise quarterback. And I think that's something that we as fans, we've talked about this at nauseum when we've talked about this whole quarterback situation for years on this channel. We've talked about, man, we just want that franchise quarterback. At a certain point, we just want that franchise quarterback. It's not Jimmy. It's not Trey. We just want the franchise quarterback. Well, it feels like we have our franchise quarterback, and it feels like we have the guy for the future that we can plan and build around. And that's huge. That it really is huge, especially being in this quarterback purgatory for a couple of years now. Having a guy that we can lean on and rely on, like Brock Purdy, and to lead us not only today on Sunday in the Super Bowl, but into the future and building a team around, that's awesome. I love it. I love all of this. I love it. Makes me feel good. Makes me feel great. We've had some stressful days when it comes to the quarterback position as fans and content creators, but feels like those days are behind us, and it feels awesome. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.